This is the Free Zone Communiqué, transmitting from Virginia's unoccupied sector. If you think smart cities, DEI, censorship, government intrusion, bug paste, and other left-wing nonsense are no longer a possibility, think again. We've won one election with slim majorities. Our work to rebuild a free and sane America has just begun.
Anyway, as we've mentioned and teased during this show, we are in the presence of poker greatness. Bob has competed how many times now in the World Series?
I've played in, I think, 4 or 5 World Series, but this series is a whole series of poker tournaments, and I've probably played in, I'm going to say, 80, 70 or 80. Now, the thing is, I can't, I wish I could brag. The last World Series just ended about a month ago. I roughly broke even, and the year before that, I roughly broke even, which, is great, except I really like that big win. I had one in the main event, I got it farther than I've ever done, which was day 3 out of I forget now, 12 days. Got to day 3, which doesn't sound very good. And I wish I could say I did better. The main event is the one that's worth $10 million. But last year I busted out at the beginning of day 2. The year before that, I busted out on day 1. Let me tell you what happened on day 1. I survived this, but only because my opponent didn't realize what he had. So for your friends, I don't want to go into the details. I'll try to simplify it. But I've been having a horrible year. So I write my blog, and sometimes I have really bad beats, which means a hand where you should win and you don't. And one example I gave a prize to anyone who figured out the odds, although you can go online under these calculators.
Yeah.
At one point, the odds were 109 to 1 in my favor, and I still lost. So,
Oh,
but 2 years ago at the World Series, the very first hand in the main event, the real big event, I had ace queen in my hand. You combine it with the cards on the table. And the first 3 cards were ace, queen, queen. I now had a full house,
yeah.
and only one possible hand would beat it. If somebody had pocket aces, 2 aces in their hand, which is very unlikely. So I'm betting, and my opponent is calling my bets. And another card comes, it's a king, and I bet, and he calls my bet. And then there's a jack, and I worry that's the last card to come out. And I realize that on the board is an ace, king, queen, jack of diamonds. And all he needs for a royal flush, one of the few hands that can possibly beat me, is a 10 of
I
diamonds.
mean, oh,
And he had the 10 of diamonds.
oh. You played it out? You played it? Uh,
Well, here's what's interesting. I checked, which means I didn't bet on the last card because I
yeah.
figure I don't want to bet just in case. It's so rare. What are the possibilities? Such a tiny possibility, but just in case, why push it? And he didn't bet either, which meant he didn't realize what he had. Because you want to bet because you can't lose. That's the best card, the best hand in all of poker. There's nothing that beats it. So whatever you've got, you're going to bet. And he didn't. And I gave a big sigh
Didn't
and I said,
realize he was
"Oh,
holding it.
what's that?"
You didn't realize he was holding the 10 of
I'm
diamonds?
guessing he didn't say anything, and people started asking him why he didn't bet, and he said he was being nice. But I think, like, sometimes you get caught up in the cards. It doesn't happen to me too often, but it does sometimes happen. I've seen it happen to professionals too, that they don't realize. So he probably thought he had a flush. He's just thinking, oh, there's 4 diamonds. I have a diamond. I have a flush. But a lot of stuff beats a flush, but not a royal flush.
Right.
So when I didn't bet and he didn't bet, I put down my ace queen and I said, "Oh, I just had this bad feeling he might have a 10 of," and then he put down the 10 of diamonds as I was saying
Oh,
it.
that hurts. The I sent a message out to my buddy Dale, my sons, and my brother. they play poker. I don't play poker. When I do play, I do sometimes win, but it's pure dumb luck. As a matter of fact, if I want to win at poker, I have to sit down when I'm not in the mood to play.
Oh.
When I do that, I win. I don't know why. Um, some guys talked me into. We were on a cruise one time, and these guys were poker fanatics. They kept telling me, "Come on, sit down, man, sit down." And finally, I really didn't feel like it. I actually had a headache. And I said, "All right, you know." So we were playing 7 card, 5 card, mixed bag, dealer choice. I was winning my ass off. I cleaned up the table and I said, "I'm going to bed." And they're, "Oh no, let us win it back." I said, "No, I'm going to bed." And I only played poker 3 times on that cruise in 6 months. And each time I crushed it. But when I sit down and say, "Hey, let's play cards, let's play poker," I might as well just hand my money to everybody because it's going away, you know?
Well, I got to tell you, I don't believe in luck or streaks but sometimes it's hard not to. The very first real tournament I ever played in Vegas, I won against two of the top players in the world were playing in that tournament. Daniel Negreanu and Barry Greenstein. I ran into Barry um, at the World Series and I took a picture with him and I reminded him about that time we played together. And I was a newbie. I've been playing with friends and he was telling people like, I don't know what this guy's doing, but I was winning almost on my hands and I won the tournament. And since then, it's been hard to do that again. I've won a few tournaments, but there's so many tournaments that I don't win. I mean, look, that just happens to everybody, but it's frustrating. When I didn't know as much, I won my tournament. Now that I know more, it seems like it's harder to win.
Yeah. Well, the odds are so crazy. Um, and we're going to get into the terms in just a minute, but it just strikes me as such a tenuous existence. You know, you were up last World Series of Poker. You were up, I think, 180 grand at one point, right?
But it's probably in fake money though. In the tournaments you play with fake money. You buy in. I might
Okay.
buy in for anywhere from $500 to $10,000, but then they might give me 100,000 in chips. And then so it's not real money, but yeah, that's what's really frustrating. I've been up a lot in chips, and then suddenly something happens, two, three hands, and I'm out of the tournament. But the other thing happens too, I've been in tournaments where I barely have any chips. And in fact, the one that I won, that first one that I told you about, and some others, sometimes I'm just barely surviving, and suddenly I get three great hands in a row, and I play them great, and now I'm the chip leader at the tournament. So, that's the frustrating. I mean, there's a lot of frustrating parts. Sometimes, I'll be honest, I had, in the past 2 years, I've had some periods where I just did so badly, where I should have, the odds were in my favor, and I lost anyway. And I mean, one time I was playing at the Orleans, which is a casino, a casino here in Vegas. Not one of the top casinos, but they have some really good poker tournaments. And at 2 in the morning, I came out in the parking garage and things had gone so badly for me. I just screamed at the top of my lungs. And then I looked at my car and I had a flat tire at 2 in the morning.
Not your night, dude.
No, no. It's like,
But yeah,
but I'll tell you, I'll end with one good story, or I'll tell you one good story. Just
yeah, go ahead.
in the World Series last year and this year, there was almost the same tournament. They gave it was a little bit different, but each time it was a bounty tournament where they had some of the world's best players, and if you knocked them out of the tournament, you'd win money. Now, for some reason, I didn't win any money from knocking anyone out of the tournament, but in both tournaments, I went really far. And I was playing against the best people in the world. And like I said, I didn't knock anybody out of the tournament, but I was winning and winning and winning. And I finished like in the top 30 out of, a few hundred people. But again, these few hundred people were among the best people in the world. And that's one of the best feelings because, I tell people, I'll never get to play LeBron James, right? I'll never play him in basketball. And I can't pay to play him. And if for some reason someone gave me an opportunity, he would destroy me. But in poker, I can play, and I have played the best people in the world, Daniel Negreanu, Phil Hellmuth. I've beaten Phil Hellmuth twice badly.
Wow.
Um, all these people that are world champions, and I've beaten them. At least, and gotten farther than them in the tournament. So it's real. That's what's the exciting part.
Okay. Yeah, I asked uh, those guys, my brother and Dale, my sons, you know, did they have any questions for you?
Okay.
And I only got two responses. One is from my brother, who should have a net thrown over his head. He just texted back, "Give me all your 13s. Go fish. See what I did there?"
Okay.
He's My brother's crazy. This dude drives down the road. He's a pharmaceutical guy. Spends a lot of windshield time, and he thinks up crazy characters, lunatic characters, so he can call his buddies mail and leave messages as these crazy characters.
Oh, that's great.
I can't imitate him. I'm not as funny as he is, and I couldn't put him on this show anyway. They're so crude, but they are funny. Um, Phil asked, "What was your biggest bluff, and did you win or lose?"
Well, the ones I lost, I probably wouldn't remember. I remember all my losses, but not the bluffs. I can't remember a specific. Wait, let me think about this. Let me think about this. I mean, I'm trying to remember. I remember a lot of my losses, and I write them up in my blog. Somebody said I should write up more of my wins, but lately there haven't been as many exciting wins, at least.
Yeah.
Um, I do remember one of the best feelings in poker, and I just have a vague memory of this. I think it was at Thunder Valley, which is a nice casino in Sacramento, just outside Sacramento,
Mhm.
where I did I remember I did a bluff. You have to, first of all, I've seen people do bad bluffs, and by that I mean I've had people like do a giant bet, and I look at the board and I think, what could they possibly have? You've got to look at how they've been betting all along,
Right.
right? Because there's multiple bets, and you think, what could he possibly have now that would explain his betting all along? And sometimes people don't think about that, and I say nothing. He's got to be bluffing, and I call the bluff, which is really nice. But the other thing is, one time I did a bluff. And a guy showed me he had, I think, pocket queens or three queens. I don't remember, like two in his hand and one on the board, or maybe just two in his hand. And I had nothing even close to that. And, I just nodded and I said, good fold, make him think he did a good fold. And he was so proud that he folded this monster hand because
Yeah.
I recognize that you can represent something like there's a possible straight on the board or possible flush. And but you've got to be careful to represent something. That's the problem. I've been up against people who it's like, what are you representing? There's nothing on the board that you could have that would beat me. So I don't remember a specific one, but that's the best feeling. The bluffs are the best feeling in the world because you actually outplayed your opponent. When you've got a great hand, like the guy who had the royal flush, he blew it
Yes.
because he could have bet his whole stack and I probably would have called him,
Oh. Yep.
right? Instead, I only lost half my stack. So he blew it. But when you've got nothing and you bluff, that's the exciting part of poker. And people think I don't bluff. They come up to me afterwards and tell me, sometimes I've had people come up to me and say, Bob, you're a really good player. But the one thing you need to improve is you need to bluff more often. And I think that's great because you didn't realize all those times I was bluffing you.
Yeah. The question I was going to ask earlier just popped back in my head. You're playing tournament play like the World Series. You say you pay your fee and they decide the denominations that'll actually be
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Um, is the payday first, second, third place? You get paid out a certain amount?
So it depends on how many people, but they usually pay 12.5% of the people. And at the bottom of that 12.5%, you get a little bit more than you put into the tournament. So you could be there all day and make $100 or $500, which for me it's the thrill of it, but it's certainly not, the money's nothing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the top of the tournament, the very top is usually about 1/3 of the entire take. So if there's $100,000, if enough people bought in that there's $100,000 prize, And again, it depends how many people buy into the tournament. But $100,000, first place will get like 35,000. But I've been in tournaments. So again, I played in the main event. Everybody put in 10,000 and the first place got 10 million.
Ooh,
Uh, yeah, yeah. There's another one coming up in December I'm going to enter where first place gets 5 million. Um,
man.
yeah, I mean, it's incredible. So that's the
Big
kind
money.
of payday that I'm looking for. I mean, I've done okay.
Have you ever slammed a big win like that?
Not that big. No, I've had a few nice wins, but nothing even close to that. That's my dream.
If you crushed it like that, would you keep playing, or would it be like can't get better than this?
I think I'd keep playing, but you never know. The thing is, I think I'd feel better. I like entering the big stakes tournaments. A lot of people say, wow, I don't want to play in a big stakes because everybody there is a top player. But whenever I played in a big stakes tournament, I've done really well. And the reason is those people don't do stupid stuff. But when you've got like a tournament where you can buy in for $200 or $500 or even $1,000, you get a lot of people that'll just say, "Oh, what the heck? I can, because you can buy back into the tournament or you can play tomorrow in a different tournament." So some of these people say, "I'm just going to take a risk." And in theory, I should win against people doing stupid stuff. But if you've got like 50% of people in the tournament doing stupid stuff, it only takes one of them to beat you,
Yeah,
right? To get lucky and beat you. But if you're playing against the pros, they don't do that stupid stuff. They take the odds into account, they take the cards into account, so they're actually easier for me to predict, because I know if they could be bluffing me, but I kind of understand their range for bluffing. Most major poker tournaments won't do a stupid bluff. They do what's called a semi-bluff, which means they have something in their hand that's good and they're pretending it's great, but
yeah,
they won't bet with nothing. Whereas, some tourist to Vegas who just brought $100 for $200, $500, they might just say, oh, they consider it like roulette. Let me just put all my chips in and see where the cards go.
yeah, yeah. The I imagine the complexity of how an idiot could mess up tournament play is more complicated than how they can ruin a blackjack table, for example.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You get
yeah.
one idiot at a blackjack table, and a guy sitting downstream from him who knows how to play, he's going to want to punch the guy.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, bad plays, taking the best cards, wasting them. Um,
But I feel like it's worse in poker because you're actually, in blackjack, you're playing against the house. So the thing is, as long as
right.
you play your best, you just have to beat the house, not the other guys playing stupid.
Yeah.
But in poker, I got to beat the guys playing stupid. And again, you'd think that would be easy, but let me give you an example. One of the worst beats I ever took, where again the odds were in my favor, is I was, I'd gotten pocket aces, the best hand you can get, and I'd beaten the chip leader at the table, the guy who had the biggest stack. I took a bunch of chips away from him, but he was still the chip leader. And like two hands later, I get aces again, which is very, very rare. And nobody expects you to have that because getting them twice you're supposed to get them once every 220 hands, I think it is,
Ooh,
on average. So I got them twice in like three hands or four hands. So I got aces. One guy raises a lot, another guy calls his raise, and I re-raise like crazy. And I figure they're going to fold, but they both call me. Now, what that tells me, if these are good players, you're not going to call a gigantic raise unless you have something. You're not going to do it with garbage. So these guys have good hands. So the flop is, I'll always remember this, it was 3-5-7. And there's nothing you could have in there that would give you anything. And it's called rainbow. So it's like they're all different suits. So you can't have a flush, you can't have a straight. So the first guy checks. I think the first guy checks, second guy checks, and I shove all my chips in. I just want to get rid of these guys. I've got two aces and I want to get rid of them. The way they're betting beforehand, they've got to have a big pair or they've got to have a big ace, ace king, ace queen, maybe ace queen, probably ace king or pocket kings, pocket queens, or pocket jacks. There's no other hand that would justify their calling my bet.
right.
So one guy folds and the other guy, who's the chip leader, he calls me with pocket sixes, which means he's got nothing. And the odds in that case, I forget what the odds are. It's like 50 to 1 in my favor. And the last card, he gets a six to give him three of a kind and to beat me.
Right.
And the thing that's just so crazy there is that the odds were so far in my favor, and he played so badly that I would have been the tournament chip leader and I would have been in the money and maybe even won the tournament. But instead, I was out because he
Well,
played badly.
that parlays perfectly into what I'm about to ask you. One of the things you told me to do in preparation for this discussion was to sit down and look at the glossary of poker terms.
Okay.
And I can see where things like that can happen to the best poker player. Um, uh, there is so much going on. If you just scroll through, what is there? There's got to be 400 terms. There's a boatload. I'm scrolling as I'm talking. I'm just up to the R's now.
I got to tell you, I don't even know them all. There was, as a like a few weeks ago at the WSOP, somebody mentioned some term and I had to look it up. And I've been playing for years. Some of these terms are pretty obscure.
Yeah. Whether you know them or not, these things are occurring, and these people are at the table sometimes. Um, Here's one I was going to ask you about. Bum hunting. Be honest, did you ever walk through a casino and see three fat guys in Bermuda shorts and think,
Well, I'm sure I've seen that, but
just take
I didn't know there
advantage?
was a name for it.
Say again?
I didn't know there was a name for it.
Yeah, bum hunting is when you're looking to take down a rube. And I was just wondering if you ever walked into a casino and went,
See, these guys beat me. I'm the guy who sits down at a table full of drunks. Actually, you talked about the cruise, and I swore I'd never play again on a cruise because I went on a cruise and I was playing poker, and everybody was drinking, and they're just shoving all their chips in all the time. We're playing at like 100, $200. So these, and you pay enough for the cruise. These people are just saying, hey, if I lose, I'll just put in another 100, $200 in a
yeah,
cash game, not a tournament.
right,
And a friend of mine, I got into a heated disagreement with him, a poker player, and he said, "This is great because you just have to pick the right time to take their money." And I said, "No, if I get aces one out of every 220 hands, do I have to wait 220 hands? And by the way, aces, if you're playing against one person, the odds are like 3 to 1 that you'll win, but it's still you could lose." Against two people, it becomes something like, 3 to 2. When you've got nine people at the table and you've got aces, your chances only are like one out of like 25% that you're going to win. It's actually the odds are against you that you're going to win.
right.
So if everybody's playing crazy, you're probably going to lose your money.
Yeah. Well, the cruise I was talking about was uh, a med cruise in the Navy.
Oh, okay.
We were
That's
playing on the centerboard down in the berthing compartment every night. That's a boring existence, the crossing the Atlantic when you're
uh,
part of the crew. Um, what was the other one? A burn. Why is there a burn card? Why do they do that?
so it's an anti-cheating thing. Um, if the dealer, as I understand it, if you've got dealers throughout history, you've got dealers who can deal from the bottom or the top of the deck and they can choose the card. I mean, you've seen magicians do this, right?
Yeah,
So, but also it's possible that when they're dealing the cards, that the next card might accidentally slip out and be seen by somebody. So the idea is if you burn one card, you just throw it away before you turn over the next card. It's less likely that anyone's seen that next card.
do you ever? I'm sure I've played games with this, but I don't recall the rule. Do you get to see the burn card after the hand? Does it
So
say
part of that's there's something called rabbit hunting, which is not that, but people can ask to see cards, and rabbit hunting is, let's say before you get to the fifth card, that it's over because somebody bets and somebody folds, and rabbit hunting is say, hey, I want to see what that next card is to see if I would have won. In some casinos, you're not allowed to do that. In most casinos, you're not allowed to do that. I don't know. It just slows down the game. But if the dealer wants to, the dealer can show it to you. You don't really get in trouble for it. It's just interesting to see, hey, I would have won or I would have lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do know at the World Series, one of the problems they've got at the World Series is they get so many thousands of people playing on any day that they have to hire dealers who they train them, they go through a quick training, and then they put them out on the floor. And a lot of the dealers, a lot of them from China, by the way, who don't even speak English, they deal and they're really bad at it. And it's very, very frustrating. And so I'll give you one example. So, you put out three cards, then you bet. So first you bet, then the dealer puts out three cards and you bet again, puts out another card, you bet again, and puts out the next card and you bet again. So at one point, the dealer had put out four cards. That's the fourth card's called the turn card, and the fifth card's the river card.
Okay.
So the turn card went out, and one player bet, and then I raised. And the dealer put out the next card before the other player
Oh,
had acted. And I was really upset because now the guy knows exactly what the next card is, and he hasn't even bet yet.
right.
So we called over the floor manager who had this process. They put the card away, they reshuffle the deck or something. I mean, there's a whole process for doing it.
And
Um,
that kills the odds anyway. That's an irreparable
well,
situation.
there have been worse stuff. I've seen worse than that because at least a new card came out, and I think the guy, anyway, I forget what happened. I think I won. I'm pretty sure I won that hand. I mean, there have been times though when the floor manager will come over and make a decision like, okay, it stays. It's like, oh, I can't, the odds have changed. But, if people have already started betting before the floor manager comes over, then they won't change anything. But so what the other guy could have done is when he saw that card, if he had immediately called my bet or raised me or something, the card would have stayed.
Yeah,
And that's really unfair because the dealer made a mistake and I'm suffering from it.
correct. Yeah. Um, in tournament play, do they lean on the clock? Do they call the clock on you?
Oh, this year, this is great. So I mean, never, never, ever, ever. Sometimes I purposely slow down my play. So let me tell you, I'll tell you a secret of mine. And I know people who disagree with me, but I absolutely swear by this. I look at my cards as soon as I get them, even if we have to go around all the way around the table to get to me, because I see my cards and I decide what I'm going to do. And then but sometimes that decision is like, okay, if somebody raises, I'll fold. If nobody raises, I'm going to raise. This kind of thing. It goes through my head really quickly. So by the time they get to me, I know exactly what I'm going to do, almost always, unless somebody does something really surprising. And so, but my problem is sometimes I want people to think I don't know what to do. So I have to remind myself to hesitate and just stop and pretend I'm thinking about it. So most tournaments don't have a clock, but they're starting to institute them in more tournaments because people will just sometimes delay and delay and delay.
Yeah,
So they're putting in these clocks. But for me, it doesn't affect me because I bet really quickly. And the thing I have to do is slow myself down. I once told someone it was a tournament that I think I won. I was telling somebody and then I regretted telling him. He and I were talking. And I know I rarely discuss strategy at the table. Well, what's the point? You're telling your opponent what you're going to do. And I think it's funny when people sit at the table, oh, you should have folded. No, I would have raised. No, your odds are this, and you should, call the bet. It's like, oh, okay, let me take all this in so I remember for the next hands, right?
yeah.
And I sometimes say stupid stuff that people take seriously, like, oh, I would have folded that hand. You would have folded that hand. Why would you have folded that hand? I said, oh, it's not my favorite hand. If it's not my favorite hand, I'm just going to fold it. And people think I'm serious and they think I'm an idiot. But the point is that I once told a person, if they have a clock in the tournament, they give you time chips that you can put in to get an extra 30 seconds of time. And I mistakenly told this guy, but it's the truth. If I put in a time chip, that means I've got a great hand and I want you to think I don't know what I'm doing. Because it's true. I never use those.
You did that to a guy at the table?
Yeah, then I thought, oh, why did I say that? Right. I usually don't do that, but he and I were talking and joking around.
Oh, that's a
And then
good
I made it
tip he
sound
can
like I
use
was
later.
joking. What's that?
It's a good tip he can use later.
I know, I know.
He can,
And
he can,
it's true, and I just
he
wasn't
can
thinking
remember
about
you
it.
when he wins a hand doing that to somebody.
Yeah. But so I think very, very, very quickly. One of my faults though is not so much these days, but when I was a few years ago when I was just starting out to play, I would sometimes bet too quickly. And what would happen is I wouldn't consider what everybody had done at the table. The worst example, this is, one time I had aces in my hand and I bet and people called me and we had a flop. So three cards are on the table. And I didn't look at the cards. I just thought, I need to bet this because I've got aces. And so some guy shoved all his chips and I immediately called him and shoved all my chips. And then I was so angry at myself because I thought, wait a minute, if he's shoving, he's got a great hand. That flop gave him a great hand. And all I've got is a pair of aces. And I was out of the tournament. I was almost in the money, so I was about to make money. I busted out. I lost 3 nights of sleep over that because I forced it into my brain. Ever since then, I watch what everybody's doing.
Right.
Even though I know what I'm going to do, it's conditional on what everybody else does. Right. So I no longer say, hey, I've got a great hand, I'm going to shove. I say, if nobody bets, I'll shove. If somebody bets, this goes through my head, but it goes really rapidly. And, so I try to slow it down sometimes if I want people to think that I'm really hesitant. See, now your
Now,
whole audience knows that.
I that's probably the reason am not a good poker player. Even if I studied the game, I don't know if I'd ever become a good poker player because I'm a plotting kind of person. You know, I feel like I discover the next step accidentally. Oh, look, I can do this. Um, and that kind of constant calculation I find it admirable. I wish I had that attribute.
Well, I'll tell you something else that goes on. When I first started playing, for the first year, maybe year or two or three, Um, I loved poker because I had to focus on the cards, on my cards, the cards on the table, what everybody was doing, and it pushed everything else out of my head. So if I just wanted to forget about, the news of the world or whatever was going on in my life, poker was great. But nowadays it comes automatically. And so I've begun some of those articles that I write on about poker, a lot of the ones I write about poker are written at the table. I might, do a rewrite afterwards. Well, I will. And then also my articles about society, politics, that kind of stuff. A lot of times I write those at the table too, because I don't have to use my entire brain anymore. So I've got this time sitting there. And so I just start writing articles.
What do you have, a little notebook and you start scribbling?
No, I have my phone. You're allowed to be on your phone as long as you're not playing the hand.
Okay.
So I get on my phone and I just start typing the article. First I do an outline, then I fill it in. So I don't need to focus as much
And the
as I
game
used
comes
to.
around to you, you just take a break from writing and say, okay, I
Well,
fold.
usually what I do is if I'm playing in the hand, I'm not writing. But once I fold my cards, if other people are playing, I'll start writing. I'll watch what they're due. By the way, one thing I think is interesting, I played against Phil Hellmuth, for example. He's won more World Series of Poker bracelets than anyone in history. He's got 17 now.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when he wasn't playing, he wasn't paying attention. And I think that's bad. This is crazy for me to say that's bad. But I've had people argue with me, like I'll say, could you move that? I can't see the hand. Actually, in the San Francisco Bay Area, you get a lot of people who are a little bit scary. And I'd say, can you move your phone or your hands or whatever? I can't see the hand. And they get really angry at me. They'd say, you're not even playing. But I watch hands, even when I'm typing an article on my phone, I'm watching what everybody's doing. I think you've got to pay attention to the hands you're not in.
Talk about using both sides of your brain.
Yeah, it's
When,
just,
when I'm writing, I don't even want to be interrupted, you
well,
know.
normally I don't. Normally I don't, but I need to be doing something. So I just start writing an outline and filling it in. And I might complete it when I get home. Um, yeah, I don't know. My brain's always going. That's the problem with me.
Fascinating. Well, the book is, let me see that book again.
Yeah, election hacks. You can get it on
Election
Amazon.
Hack by Bob Zeidman. I will put a link to that. I will put a
Uh,
link to our previous interview. Um, and you were going to send me a link to your article.
yes.
Uh, I would definitely like to see that. That'll be on the link. If you want to check out Bob's bio, go to the link about the previous interview. This is not just a poker player who's out to get Mike Lindell. This is a thinking man. He's got 29 patents, I believe.
I just got my 30th. I got a patent in China.
Oh man.
I figure when
that'll be
China
great
takes
until
over
they
the
steal
world.
it from you.
What's that?
That'll be great until they steal it from you.
Well, I was going to say when China takes over the world, at least I'll still have something. I'll have my
There
Chinese
you
patent.
go. There you go. Start brushing up on your Mandarin.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's always great to have Bob on. He's a great guy. I think it was Evan that put us
Yes.
together, right? Evan said
Yes.
that was another great show.
Yeah, he's great. He's a great speaker. He's got a lot of energy. He's a really good friend of mine.
He's a character. He's a character, and it was unfortunate we had bad video in
Mm.
discussion, but it was a great discussion. He's never boring. One
That's for
thing about Evan,
sure.
he's never
That's for
boring.
sure. I tell that, we met. I just tell you, we met because we both came out with books. This is about 10 years ago. We both came out with books and were invited to an event, a Republican event, to talk about our books. And I say that people bought my book because they felt sorry for me because I didn't get to say anything.
Because Evan did all the talking, right?
In fact, Evan even apologized to me afterwards. I mean, he was just talking nonstop, but it was fun. We became really good friends.
Yeah, he's one of those guys at a party. If somebody jerks his chain, everybody else might as well just shut up because
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Evan's here.
Yeah.
But it's great to have you, Bob. I hope to have you back again. Hopefully your case will move along and there will be an outcome to talk about here. Um, if the Supreme Court doesn't take something in a given season, is that it, or do you get to go back next year and throw it at them again?
I think what they do, if I understand right, they decide at some point they either will take it or not. Once they decide not to take it, that's the end of it. By the way, I'm never going to see 5 million. Lindell is virtually bankrupt, if not actually bankrupt. I don't expect to see 5 million, but I just want to right now 2 wrongs. So hopefully the Supreme Court will take it. But if they decide not to, that's the end of it.
Yeah, that and I knew all along this is not Bob got his feelings hurt, so now he wants to take somebody down. I know that's not what it's about. And your intentions are good.
Thank you. Thank
So
you very much.
let's hope for the
And
best.
Matt, thanks for having me. This was great.
It was great. Thanks, buddy. I'll talk to you.
Please tell a friend about the Free Zone Communiqué. We live and die with the share and subscribe buttons. Please use affiliate and sponsor buttons to support our work. Thank you very much for joining us today.